Hey everyone, welcome back. This is my June not my June TBR, my June wrap up. I read about, or finished, if I didn't start it in June, most of them I did start in June, but there's at least one that I started, I think, in May, and I finally finished it. But altogether, I completed 14 books. The first book that I read was The Sister's Chase by Sarah Healy. I'm not sure if it was her debut novel. I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars. I was really disappointed. This was marketed as a thriller, and I was really expecting something really thrilling, and it just wasn't. I figured out the sort of twist thing on like page 2. I had a pretty strong sense of this thing, and there was something about it that kept me going, but it was just also really I didn't feel it was thrilling. I felt like there was a lot going on that was like not fully explained. There was this was just the thing that I found really annoying. One of the sisters is an adult, and one is like early teens, and they kept it was extremely repetitive. The girls, and it irritated me, first of all, just because it was really repetitive, and second of all, because the older sister is now a woman. She's not a girl. That's kind of like a thing that irritates me when we insist on calling women girls. We don't call men boys. So that just irritates me. So, didn't like it. Passed it on to Lisa from Books and Smiles for Book Swapathon, thinking she might like it. Just because, even a book that I hate, someone else might love. I try not to be a book snob. You never know what other people might get out of something that you just don't get out of it. But fortunately and unfortunately, she also did not like it and gave it a 1. I say fortunately because it's nice to agree with someone and have someone to vent with. Unfortunately, because I'm sorry that she wasted her time on it. Okay, the second book I read was I Got This. It's a young reader biography of, I'm going to forget her name, Laurie Hernandez. She was on the Olympics gymnastics team in the last Olympics. I don't even remember when that was. Was it last summer, I think? So it was to fulfill a Book Riot Read Harder challenge, which I'm not doing anymore. I had to read a book about sports, and I'm not that interested in sports, and I have had so many other things to read. I just wanted something quick. It gave it 3 stars. It was okay. She wrote it. It was cute. It was interesting. I like gymnasts and Olympic gymnastic teams, and so, it was kind of cool to read about, but it was nothing amazing. It was just a little, short. I think it was around 120 pages, or maybe 200 pages, but I don't think it was even that long. So it was just sort of a space filler, which is why I've kind of quit doing the reading challenges, which I talked about in my Meanderings chatty video a little earlier. The third book I read was The Marriage Pact by, I'm trying to remember this, Michelle. It was an ebook that I got off NetGalley. Michelle Richmond. I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved it. I believe it comes out in July. It's, I don't know if I'd call it, it's kind of a thriller, suspenseful. It's about a couple that gets married, and is invited to join the Pact, which is a group of married couples that is sort of has promised to remain married, to not get divorced, to do everything they can to make their marriage the best that it can be. It turns out to be quite cult-like, and I thought it was really interesting, just really a really neat read, unlike anything I've read before. I'm really interested in cults and Scientology, and it was like Scientology but for marriage. And I really enjoyed it. I read it really quick. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because I was not happy with the last page and a half, which was not like a huge deal. It just wasn't how if it had ended a page and a half earlier, it would have been 5 stars. I wish it had been more of like like the type of ending where you're kind of left to decide what you think's going to happen. But that's okay. I mean, it's still kind of left like that, but just not in the way that I wanted. But yeah, this is a book that I want to buy my own copy and reread it at some point, and see if I'm still as irritated with the ending the way she did it. But yeah, I loved it. Book 4 was The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. She is the author of Behind Closed Doors, which came out with a lot of hullabaloo last summer. They gave away, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave away thousands of copies. It was a UK release, and I believe the movie rights had been purchased, so then they released it here in America with just huge tons of giveaways. They were just saturating the market with free arcs. But anyway, I read that one too, and I liked it. It was a really quick read, but it also kind of had irritated me in a couple ways. It came off to me as just extremely unbelievable in I can't suspend my belief for this sort of way. But The Breakdown I liked a lot more. I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave Behind Closed Doors 3 stars, but I definitely enjoyed this a lot more. Now, I read so many books this month, I'm just trying to remember, basically. Okay, so in this one, the main character is driving home from something in the evening, and there's a big storm going on, and she passes a car that is pulled over, and then the next day she finds out that person in that car was murdered. And so she's trying to figure out who it was and what happened, and she has a lot of guilt over having not pulled over to see if they needed any help. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that the pacing was really good. I thought it was pretty steady read. I didn't read it as quickly as Behind Closed Doors. There wasn't as much of a burning, I've got to get through this and see how this ends, but it was still a quick read, and I enjoyed it, and I liked the ending. The ending was a surprise to me. It's one of those where it was at the end I was I cannot believe I didn't figure that out. That's so obvious. Why didn't I think more of it? And so I was happy with it. Next was the Watershed Anthems. This is by Drew Brathwaite, who is a friend of mine. I've actually been working on this since January or the end of December. I misplaced it for a while. My rabbit got a hold of it. But it's a book of short stories and essays and the beginnings of books that he wants, the first chapter of a couple books that he might continue and publish at some point. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm not sure exactly what all to say, except that if you knew Drew, these stories just really, like, what you see is what you get with Drew. Like, these are definitely in his, I don't know how to explain. Okay, so let me try again. This is broken up into 2 parts. There's the first half of the book is called On Earth, which are stories about things that actually happened to him in his life. The second half of the book is called As It Is in Heaven, and these are inspired by actual events, but they're fiction. And then the very last story in this book is The Son of the Memory Merchant, which is the first chapter of the book. That one's completely fictional. It's completely imagined. But everything else is at least inspired by real things. One of my favorite stories would probably be Mr. Robin's Radio, which is about a teacher that he had that gave Drew a radio. I think he was like 10 or 12. Gave him a little old, radio that he like fixed up and found and discovered like classical music, and it really made really inspired his life, made a difference in his life. And then he goes back as an adult and catches up with that teacher and tells him what a difference he made in his life. And so I really enjoyed that story. There's a story about bullying. There's a story about his absentee father. There's hilarious letters that he wrote to Chuck Norris as he was attempting to quit smoking for like the 10th time or something. There's a list of, it's called In Case of Calamity, I think. In Anticipation of Calamity, and it's a list of things not to do in the event of this situation. And that was really amusing as well. There's in the second half of the book, there's a fictional story about a young woman and her relationship with her alcoholic father. So I recommend this. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. It was, like I said, it took like 6 months to get through. Not that it's dense or difficult to read, but just it's the kind of book you just pick up here and there and read a story out of. Next was the books that I read in the book swap-a-thon. So I'm not going to talk about these in detail because you can go watch my book swap-a-thon wrap-up. But I finished The Stranger Beside Me by Ann Rule. I gave it 5 stars. Next was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, which I loved, adored. Cannot wait to continue the series. This was a 5-star read. Yeah, I just absolutely love it, and my daughter, I believe, is in her 2nd time reading through it. I had to steal it back from her just to do this wrap-up. Next, I read The Good Braider, which I believe I gave about 3.5 stars. It was okay. Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail because it's on the other video, but yeah, it was okay. I don't know if I'm going to hold on to that one or not. Next, I read Calling Dr. Laura, which I also talked more about on my book swap-a-thon wrap-up. I'm not going to be holding on to this. It was okay. It was a fun graphic novel, but I'm not going to reread it, and the art is not so amazing that I want it just for that. Next, a book that I was reading through. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. I started this at the beginning of June, and I read through it the entire month. I also listened to some of it on audio, which was the first time I've listened to an audiobook in years. So I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. This is definitely a book that I want to reread completely by myself, like not using any audio. The audio was a nice experience, but I feel like, because I tend to just sort of zone out when I'm listening to things, unless I'm really like following along or really paying really close attention. If I can't do anything at the same time, really. I'm a thinker. I tend to zone off and start thinking other things. So I really want to read through it again at some point. But I do recommend it. It's very interesting. It's about Samuel Anderson, who his mother abandoned him and his father when he was around 10 or 11, and so this is him as an adult going back and trying to recreate his mother's life and find out what happened with her, what happened before she was married, what happened after she left. And it goes back to like the 60s and I think it's like a rioting in Chicago. So I really enjoyed it. It has a lot of satirical commentary about what's going on in our world, in our country these days. Yeah, so 5 stars. I enjoyed it, and I want to read it again. Also during Book Swapathon, I listened to A Mother's Reckoning on audio, which I talk more about in my Book Swapathon wrap-up. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was an enjoyable read, but there was also things I didn't like about it. Okay, next I read I skipped one. I read Sticks and Stones by Abby Cooper. I read this because I'm participating in a multi-Bookstagrammer giveaway of Abby Cooper's new book, which is called Bubbles. Today is Saturday, July 1st. Tomorrow, Sunday, July 2nd, at I think it's like 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be posting about this giveaway of Bubbles. So if you're interested, it's a middle grade novel. Check me out on Instagram. So I read Sticks and Stones by Abby Cooper. It was a middle grade novel about a girl that has a disorder, a very fake disorder where anytime she's called a name, like whether it's good or bad, whether it's like wonderful, smart, or dork, idiot, stupid, the word forms on her skin. And positive words are fine and just show up, but negative words itch. So as she goes into like 5th or 6th grade, kids are not being as careful. When she was younger, they would always tell the other children, not to call names, and that, it physically causes problems with this girl whose name I don't remember. But then once she reaches middle school, she doesn't want to be made like the center of attention anymore, so they don't tell anyone, and kids will call her names, and she starts feeling worse about herself, and she finds out that even when she calls herself names or thinks negative things about herself, that it will appear on her skin. And so it's about that, and about her journey to love herself. And it was a cute book. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a very quick read. I read it like in a day. So I enjoyed it. I wasn't as done with it as others are, but that's okay, because different opinions are what make the world go round. So yeah, so that was a quick, interesting read. Okay, so then I read The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord, and this is my first Emery Lord book. I just picked it up off the library shelf. I'm trying to remember, actually I put a hold on it, but there's a whole story about that. I'm trying to remember which video. I've posted like 4 videos in the last 2 days, so I don't remember. But one of my videos over the past 4 days, I talked in depth about how much I loved this, but I don't mind talking about it again. I loved it. 5 stars. I want to read all the Emery Lord books ever. I want my own copy of this. It's just a beautiful falling in love with a friend sort of coming of age story. The main character is 17. Yeah, and I love the friendships in this book. They are just, I want friends like this, that are just always there for you and support you, and yeah, I love this book very much. I recommend it to anyone that's interested in YA contemporary romancy sort of, but like mild romance. It doesn't go into any like their first kiss is like at the end of the book. I'm not trying to give anything away, but I just want you to know that it's not like a raunchy sort of book. Yeah, so definitely recommend. And then the last thing I read in June was a beta read for a Facebook friend of mine. I'm not going to really say anything about it because I don't know what's going to end up happening with it. Yeah, so 14 books I finished in June. I'm very happy with my June reading month. I think I did really well. There's a couple other books that I started that I haven't finished yet, but I will talk about those in my July wrap-up. So, thanks for watching. Have a great day.